Hi, good afternoon, everyone. All right, welcome once again to Institute for Financial Literacy. All right, our Facebook Live, Ask Me Anything. All right, so welcome once again. All right, I'm Joseph. I'll take you through for this 1 hour. All right, so but before we begin, just to welcome our friends who perhaps is new to us. So this is a session whereby we'll take you through some of the basic concept about money management, and then leave most of the time for questions and answer at second part of this. All right, so today's topic, we're going to talk about financial fitness and basics of money management. So before that, all right, just some simple disclaimer. All right, so this is a webinar aimed to provide information to help you to then appreciate the principal concept about money management. So it is not a form of financial advice. So any examples or names that has been cited in the process is more to illustrate what we are sharing concerning the principle and concepts. And then if you do need any financial advice, do approach a licensed financial advisor, right, to seek guidance or opinion. All right. Okay, wonderful. Great. So everybody settle down. So take relax, and then I will start very quickly on this. Yeah. So what is financial fitness and basics of money management? Okay, let's look at some of these questions that I would ask myself, and I believe some or most of us would do the same. Right? What are they? How can I know whether I'm financially fit? What is a good financial health? Where can I get a financial health check? As well as for emergency, right? Do I have at least 6 times of monthly expenses saved up? I will explain a bit more on why 6 months, right? The magic number 6 months. And then how to go about building a strong financial foundation for my future. And finally, right, do I have enough protection if a sudden crisis hits? Okay, right. Before we tackle these questions, and also at the same time zoom in some of the basic approach to money management, let's look, all right, over here. Let's look at the one question. So, right, let's do this, right? Do a poll. For emergency, do you have at least 6 times of your monthly expenses saved up? Okay, this will be in the form of poll. So yes or no, right? In front of you at your Facebook, you will see a pop-up, right? So you can click at your own leisure, right? Yes or no. So I'll just pause here for a short while for you to just think through and then put in your input. Yes. Okay. All right. I see some response here. Give me a moment, right? Let me just check out. Huh? Okay, now the response that I've got here is 50-50. So meaning 50 of our respondents says yes, and the other 50 says no. All right, so no worry. All right, we're going to take you through some of these measures so that we could then appreciate why 6 months, and then you examine for yourself how much exactly do you need, as well as put in some action plan to work towards achieving your own financial goal. Now, what is financial fitness, right? Financial fitness, briefly, right, it could be summarized in this sentence. It means the sense of feeling good, confident, not just feeling good, but confident. Confident being able to manage my money, derived from being able to manage my money to meet my current and future needs. Right. So the confidence derived from what I am doing or able to do with my money, so that I am able to face to be able to accommodate my needs and my wants in the future, particularly so reaching towards my financial goals. I'll talk a bit more about needs and wants later, right? Right. So I'll just go on. Now, how do I then measure as a start? How do I then measure my financial fitness? Right. There are 4 ratios that I would like to share with you. Right. These are the 4. Right. I'll take you through one at a time, starting with a basic liquidity ratio. Now, so these are these ratios, right? What you do is that right after this talk, right, take a moment of it for yourself, and then just to take account of your own money, and then use some of these ratios to measure against some of these readings here. This is just not cast that you have to, but as a guide for you to refer and see how are you doing. All right, and then so basic liquidity ratio is cash and cash equivalents over monthly expenses. So meaning I will then look at myself and ask myself, do I have the money? When I say money here, it means there's something that's readily usable, something that's not tied up in properties or investment, that I could use it to meet my monthly expenses. My monthly expenses over here involved not just food, travel, and also at the same time, rental and things like that, but also involve my obligations, such as my loans, right, my credit cards, and etc., where I need to pay. So these are the expenses, all right, that's there. And then you divide by these expenses, all right, and then 6 times. 6 times, okay? Now, 6 times, why 6 times? Briefly, the rationale behind this is this. If I one day couldn't work because of various reasons, maybe health, I need to then rest, or if I happen to lose my job, or I'm in a transition, right, to find another job. So it takes roughly about 3 to 6 months, perhaps as a guide, as roughly, right? And then, so with this 6 times of the monthly expense in place, it could help me to tie over the period until I'm more settled down, right? So that's basic liquidity ratio. Do you and me have that? Now, next is saving ratio. We all know, right? We need to then, everything starts with ability to control your money, but at the same time, right, be able to put aside saving. There's this concept called pay yourself first, meaning you have a goal, you want to work towards that, you got to set aside a certain amount to reach that goal. And one of the helpful way is saving, okay? Saving. So saving ratio helps, right? So monthly saving divided by my monthly take-home pay. Here, we are not talking about including CPF, it's net of CPF, all right? So that is 20%, right? As a guide, right? 20%. So am I on track? Now, some may say, oh, I like, 5%, am I okay? Perfectly okay. The important thing is to start action. Habits are built over time. So once you have that habit of saving, all right, and then gradually work towards 20, I have come across some participants who share, they actually save 50%, but some struggle, they say they're very difficult. But I always encourage, start the ball rolling, start the habit building, and then gradually work towards more when you could afford it, right? But keep it there, all right? And then the next one is non-mortgage debt servicing ratio. Now, this non-mortgage itself suggests that it's not property alone. Things like credit card, overdraft, things like personal loan, right, goes on top of the here, right? So this is a total non-mortgage loan repayment divided by my take-home pay. Why take-home pay? Because I can't use my CPF to pay for my credit card, right? Am I right? I mean, yeah, before 55, unless I got surplus and draw. Otherwise, right, I can't, right? So therefore, it's only practical that we use monthly take-home pay. And this should not be more than 15%. And I would always suggest to my participant to bring it lower and not max it to 15. Why? Because interest rate changes, over time. And that could, if I'm really maxing to 15, it could well cross 15 anytime. So I would like to minimize it. These are costs to me, right? And then finally, the last one that over here, it would be the mortgage. That is related to property. So if I buy a property and I got to service a loan over every month, right, divided by my gross pay. Why gross pay is because generally speaking, we could use our CPF to pay, right? So hence we take gross pay. Yeah. And this should not be more than 30% of our gross pay, right? So this few items help us to then check, have an appreciation of how are we doing thus far. Okay, so do feel free to put in your questions into the Facebook comment, and then I will then reserve the question later to answer them. All right, so just go on, and then we'll talk about more on your questions. Yeah. Okay, now mortgage and non-mortgage, 30, add together seems to suggest that I can lend or borrow up to 45. Okay, I would like to correct that thought, right? I'd like to correct that thought before we all walk away thinking that it's 45. No, all right. So the total debt servicing ratio, meaning my total debts all add together divided by my take-home pay, should not be more than 35%. So it means that in all my owing or debts that I need to service every month should not be more than 35. And 35, what does it mean? It means that if I have lots of concentration over here going to 30, it means that no, I should really cut down on my non-mortgage to bring it overall below 35 or below, okay? Not more than that. Okay. So now, with that, right, taking control of your money, right, how do we then, after appreciating where we are now, so where do we go from here? So we need to set a plan in place, am I right? So that's called a financial planning. Now, financial planning from IFL perspective, right, Institute for Financial Literacy, this is actually, we look into three components. What are they? First, we start with save. So saving, like what I mentioned, it is one of the useful way to build towards your building up the resource to then reach your goal. So managing your resource. In order to save, you have to examine your expenses, you have to examine your income, and then come up with a budget in order to actively and purposefully manage your money towards building up your saving for the reserve that you need. Okay. And then secondly, protect, right? Be prepared for unexpected events. We all agree that in life, there's this thing which is we call unexpected circumstances, and it can happen anytime in any form, and it could well come with financial impact. And if that is so, or if there are in events like this, can we then withstand or cushion against such impact? So therefore, protect is very, very important. So protect here, we suggest here that we look at some insurance or some product that is suitable for you, that you could afford, and that is sufficiently covering your needs. Yeah. Okay. And then, of course, you don't want to be over-insured. So you need to then measure yourself and ask yourself, how much premium can I afford? What kind of protection do I need? I prioritize it. All right. And then progressively, perhaps those that I could not afford, when I can do so, consider them in the near future or in the time to come. Now, the next one will be investment. All right. Invest, it's one way to grow our resource towards reaching our goal. Invest itself, it's just a channel whereby when we have our financial goal, example, retirement, example, buying a house, example, forming a family, example, even going for your short trip. So all these are mid, long, and short-term goal, right? And then, so that goal itself, right, with saving and protection in place already, our investment help to facilitate the growth or in terms of our resource to build towards it, right? But then in investment, there are things to look out for that we be mindful about. Because why? Because when we talk about invest, we are talking about expected returns. Am I right? So when it comes to expected return, it means here is that we hope to achieve certain rewards out of the money that we put in for investment. So when it falls short of that expectation, that is called risk, right? So if I'm expecting to 3% return, but it ended up less than that, or worse, zero, or even losing my money, that is called risk for investment. So we have to be very careful and very mindful that investment, right, do have risk involved, right? So we understand why are we investing and the elements that's involved, the risk. And here we're talking about the risk of ourselves, our risk profile. How much risk can we afford? How much risk can we take? And what's our attitude towards risk? Do we understand the investment? What kind of product are we talking about here? What is my first, second, and third way out in the investment? And so on and so forth, all right? The horizon as well. All right, so if you are interested in all these three of these components in more details, do feel free to sign up for our workshop. And then I'll flash the workshop whereby you can link to appreciate some of these topics that we offer. Now, with all this in place, and as we work towards that goal, right, you may be asking, can I then do save and then go to invest instead of save, protect, invest? Now, this is a very valid question, right? Let me just share with you the importance of putting them in its in its proper order. The reason is this: when I saved and I straight away jump into investment without protection. Now, in the event, if some unexpected situation happens, and if there is financial implication, what does it mean? It means that, you know, my money that I have for saving may not be enough to cover the amount that is demanded of me. And worse, right, I may be put in the position where I have to liquidate my investment at the unfavorable price or cost, and I am at a loss situation whereby, and worse, may not be sufficient to cover the financial impact from that unexpected event, and then ended up, you know, some may end up in debt. So therefore, it is so important to have saving in place, consider it carefully before you think about investment. Right. So I hope that sharing would help to explain why in this order. And then keeping your money safe, right? Always track your money and then reconcile, make sure that we spend within our means and we are actively paying ourselves to do what? To achieve our goal purposefully, yeah? And then to make sure that there's no unauthorized drawing, so that, you know, in the event that if there's some suspicious transaction that is happening, we can then quickly pick it up because we have been tracking it. We have been looking at our balances in our reports, yeah? And then never share your personal information. We all know that scam, you know, almost every day you hear about reports about be careful of scam, and then you see notices in newspaper, social media, and all this. So be careful. All right. So make sure that you protect your own information vigilantly, and as well as do not disclose any credentials or OTP to anyone. Right. And also remember to always ask, check, and confirm and act. Now, what is ask, check, and balance? Confirm. It means that, you know, if you come across any investment that promises you no risk but high return, when it's too good to be true, it's very likely so. So be careful. You know, there's nothing. You know, if there's an investment like what I explained earlier, it's a two-way. There's two sides to things. There's a return and then there's a risk. Right. So always ask, how do they manage to pay me without risk? And what keep them going to generate kind of income, right, to pay me consistently? And who is taking care of this money? What kind of business is helping to generate these returns? And then what is their track record and things like that? So all these ask, check, and confirm help us to then have a more informed decision we make before we make any decide on any form of action. Yeah. And as an individual or as a consumer, remember this ACT. What is A? A is add. You add some software into your handphone. Things like, for example, Scam Shield. Now, Scam Shield is offered to you by Scam Alert website, and whereby you can, now please remember, go to that original website and look at it, all right? Do not follow any link that's given to you, because I understand that there is a kind of scam out there that is impersonating Scam Shield. So be very careful. Always authenticate and confirm to make sure that it's the authentic one. Yeah? So add to that, it helps you to filter out some of this scam call that comes in based on the data bank that it has, right? To highlight to you. And that's bring you to the second letter, which is C. C stands for checked. Okay, C stands for check. So always check your if there's any message that comes in, strangers or even numbers that you're not familiar with, right? Be on alert, be vigilant, right? Particularly if it's flagged out like likely scam, right? So these are things that you could do to protect yourself. And then finally, tell. Now, whether or not I'm a scam victim, right? When I encounter some scams or some messages, I report it. Right, I reported to Scam Alert so that to build up the database to protect each other as a community, right? So I will tell it to my children and my elderly at home so that they'll be informed. And in the event I'm not around at home, at least they are aware and know these are the things that's happening. So by doing so, we are protecting each other as well and our loved ones as well, right? So these are a few things that we could do, right? So it's an overview about basics of money management as well as financial health check. All right. So now let's enter into the session on question and answer. All right. So I'm going to flash to you now, right, the QR code for the Slido. right? So ask me anything, scan in this QR code over here, all right? Then fill in your questions, right? Fill in your questions over there. I will take the question one at a time, as much as I could within the given time, right? So I'll just pause here for a short while for you to do so, okay? Okay, wonderful. Okay, so I see some question already coming in. All right, very good. Okay, let me just do that for very quickly, yeah. All right, good. All right, thank you. Thank you once again for your valuable time for lunch, as well as your input over here. I think that, you know, during this time, asking questions help us to then sharpen each other. I'm also learning from your questions, yeah? Okay, let's look at the first one. That's hard to save as my expenses keep increasing because of rising prices. Any advice to me? Very good question. Very real question. Why? Because sometimes if I go to buy food, as compared to a few years ago, things get smaller at the same price. So I would feel the difference as well. But let me just bring you through. In fact, just that reminds me, this morning there was an article by Straits Times. You can read it. I think it's just been posted a couple of hours ago. All right. So it talks about rising costs as well as inflation. So let me just share with, just set a backdrop, all right? Some of these things that's been observed in the article, right? It says here, overall, some main contributors to inflation in 2023 were prices of food, transport, housing, and utilities, okay? And there was some sharing by banks, right? Local banks that talks about what the consumption has gone up, spending has gone up. Some of them is due to, they call it revenge travel, revenge spending after the lifting up of lockdown, right? So all this also contributed to the spending. And there's one that particularly attracted my attention is this, right? One of the banks actually shared this. It says here, our consumers spend almost double on premium coffee compared with Heartland Kopi, right, between December 2022 and November 2023. So there is also another trend that's forming. They call it experiential spending. Yeah? And then one more, it says here, based on the bank's observation, card holders paid about 46 million for concerts tickets in 2023. And the breakdown is this, okay? Western pop amount to about 39 million. All right, Mando pop 6 million, as well as K-pop, right, 1.5 million. So all this, right, seems to suggest one thing, right? There is a certain trend of spending behavior and things like that. But zooming in now, so that with the backdrop, right, there are different scenarios, different way of spending. So very importantly, right, let's pause here for a moment and examine ourselves, right? Take account, like what we suggested, measure financial fitness, take account by doing what? By doing a budget. Now, what does budget mean? It's very simple. List down my income, list down my, first and foremost, the saving I'm putting aside, if there's any, question mark, doesn't matter, put it aside first, and then list down my expenses. With these three elements coming together, you could roughly tell, right, okay, my income, my expenses. And then when the expenses, look at what are the things that I'm spending on. Examine those items, right? After you have done that, right, so you roughly know the position where you and me are, right? And so therefore, then can I suggest a few approach to this? Now, like what Zig Ziglar, he's a motivation speaker, but passed on already, a US motivation speaker. He says this, if I keep doing what I'm doing, I'll keep getting what I'm getting. So there is a need to change the way we approach things, okay? So can I suggest the 2 A's, adopt and adapt. Adopt meaning what? Then I examine our expenses, ask ourselves, are these needs or are these want? Need are things that keep me going, in operating normally in life. Huh? Once besides meeting my need already, I've got extra. I'm able to enjoy a higher quality of living with that ability. So that's wants. Now remember this, right? Needs are basic, wants are extra. So therefore, when I am challenged in terms of my expenses or my income, then I would examine myself. First and foremost, I want to make sure my needs are met. So I would like to re-examine my expenses and make sure that these are covered before I even think about wants. And then this needs one way to do so is you can do a substitute. Now, when you look at some expenses, right, we talk about what? We talk about house brand and branded goods. I remember going to supermarket. I shared it in my class. That it's always pay to be polite. So I always say hello to this gentleman who is a staff in one of the supermarket. And when I was looking at it with the floor detergent, right, that floor detergent, it's a branded. It smells very nice. But he walked to besides me and said, "Sir, you can actually consider our house brand, right? It's cheaper." And I look at it, indeed, $3 to $5 cheaper. And so that helps me to save a bit, right? Nevertheless, in the morning you go to work, it smells very nice, but when you mop the floor already, it smells very nice. You close the door. After nighttime, you come back. The smell, so buying a house brand, to me, it makes no difference. It's just making sure that the basics are met, the house floor is clean. Yes? Okay, good. So now, right, substitute. And then free. Sometimes you can go online, or even I heard that in the library, if you log on a certain offering by them, you get free newspaper reading that you can enjoy, right? So things like that. Or abstain, things that it's going to cause some leakages in your expenses, hobbies or some form of habits. Then we could then scale it down, and because why we need the money to meet our basic meet our needs. So therefore, it's something that you need to consider carefully. And then, of course, other ways to reduce expenses, we examine, let's say, utility, right? If one way is that, of course, try to use air dry instead of using a dryer, which is consuming quite a lot of energy. And also switch off the devices rather than put it on standby, because some engineer told me that if you switch on standby, electricity is still running, and it all translate into money. Small little things like this all add up to help us to do some saving. So I hope that that could help for a start. Of course, to go beyond that, we look for opportunity to upgrade ourselves, right, to expand our horizon, so that when opportunity comes along, we could then ride on it and sail with it. Yeah. Okay. So that's question for that, right? So I hope I answered that question. I heard of suggestions to have some emergency fund. What amount should I keep for this purpose and why? I think I've explained that during the session, right? 6 months, roughly as a guide, 6 months. Reason is that in case I can't work, right? This amount will then go to help to serve my expenses, whether with my loved ones and myself and my obligations, right? Until I am able to recover or find a new job. Now, question is this: is it 6 months for everybody? Absolutely not. Because why? 6 months for some who are going through different landscape in terms of the career, maybe the industry is going through some challenges, it might take 12 months. So it'd be good to be prepared. If you could work towards 12 months that's suitable for you, by all means. And some may say, hey, I don't need, because why, my industry is buzzing, booming, and then everybody's looking for me to engage me as a worker. Good and well, I mean, well and good, that's good. But I would suggest to at least build a habit of 6 months, so that you become a habit, right? Become a habit. It has on that. So I hope that helps. And then my saving not earning me good enough interest. Should I move my funds into investment instead? Faster growth, right? Faster growth, yes. That's our expectation. Remember, if we fall short of our expectation, it becomes a risk that we're prepared to take. And also, very importantly, we must understand, why are we saving? If we are saving for investment, right, and for retirement, and we put into investment, and the risk is beyond what we could imagine, we could manage, then if something turns not ideally what we expect it to be, it could be detrimental. It could set us back a few years, or even put us into a very unfavorable situation. So investment, it's interesting, but yet it got to be with caution, with understanding before doing so. And always remember, save, protect, invest. Save, protect, invest. Put that in this order, right, to serve you better. When is it necessary to measure my financial health? Before, after, absolutely all the time. Why? Because before, I would like to know whether do I have enough to retire. After is whether how much I'm still left with, right? And make sure that I live within what my resource is able to offer me. So in my opinion, it's an ongoing process. Yeah, I like to go concert. Normally, I would choke the tickets using credit card first and pay the bills when I got my pocket allowance. Do you think it's okay? Okay, now when this very much involve emotion, because why? Like what I do, sometimes there's an offer. I go to some shopping center and then they say that only 2 days. So if you miss it, right, you're going to regret. So a lot of emotion involved here. I'm like, always there's this saying, I can't remember who said this, but he said this, right? When it comes to money, let your head do the ruling rather than your heart. It's difficult, but you just got to do it. Why? Because you see, when we measure and ask ourselves the consequences of our action, at that moment when we live under the experience of here and now, but guess what? Tomorrow and the day after, you will become a here and now very soon. And that experience, is this something that we want or is something we could afford? Otherwise, can I then plan it properly such that I can have a more holistic here and now experience? And so over here, I would suggest this, right? If instead of buying doing any purchases in advance with the money that you have not received, which is a risk itself. Why? Because if the money don't come in, I'm in trouble. So therefore, always saved up if you could, right? Put aside that money and appreciate the effort that you did. Hey, I bought this ticket because what I've done some trade-off in my expenses, and I value the experience of saving it up, and the experience of going for the concert of purchasing that thing will be more pleasant. Do you agree? Yeah. So I am, next question, I am nearing retirement, right? How do I know I'm financially ready? Okay, that's a good question. Now, this involves a lot of components here. So we do have this planning for retirement cost, briefly offered by Institute for Financial Literacy, right? So over here, then we will examine what are the needs in retirement, what are the housing, health, daily expenses. These are the things that we would hope that minimally being covered, so that we could then have a more enjoyable retirement. So one way is to also look at yourself and ask yourself, my expenses, we can only crystal ball read what is the need in retirement in some way, right? Maybe not. So one way is to do this, right? We could use this adjusted expense method, whereby you examine your expenses now and ask yourself, what are the areas that you're likely to spend more or spend less during retirement? This will give you a kind of estimation of what is your need. And with that, right, and ask yourself, okay, next thing to consider is how long is my life in retirement? So assumingly I'm 65 and I'm retiring, and assumingly if I live up to the average life of Singaporean, based on 2019 statistics, it's about 84 years old. So 65 to 84 maybe is a good 20 years or so. So 20 years, every year, the monthly expenses times 12 times the 20 years. That is the amount that I need for retirement. So that is quantified. Once you quantify already, and ask yourself, where is my resource now? Do I have the resource to limit all this? Otherwise, what are the avenue? What should I do? And that will then set into place a retirement planning to work towards meeting your needs. Of course, and ideally speaking, if we could meet all our needs, that's good. But there are circumstances we may not have enough, right? So what do I do? So therefore, then I think about this, right? And then what do? I manage my expenses, right? It means that perhaps I need to then manage my expectation such that it is within my expenses, and try my best to stretch my dollars. Because why? Because I remembered when I was a kid, my mom is very frugal, very careful with the money. Why? Because money is making a living is hard. So therefore, with the money that she has to make sure, and my parents are make sure that the family has enough to eat, and so these are basic. It's about survival. It's about basic to make sure that things are enough. So every cent, right, she has to think and to be careful to spend, right, to make sure that all of us have our needs. So from her way of approach to things, and I look at it, I said, I learned something here. First, meet my need first. And if I couldn't meet my need, how do I stretch my dollars? And I always amazed how she could stretch that little money that she has to make sure that we have enough to eat and for school. and clothes. Yeah. So it's something that, you know, we all come from different environment, different challenges, but stay resilient. All right. Come for our course on building financial resilience. We're going to talk about different pillars, how you could really prepare yourself or equip yourself to be financially resilient. Yeah. Okay, I hope I answered that question. And then I'm struggling to pay the installment due to increasing interest. What are the possible action I can take? Okay, this part, I would like to look at both part. All right. One part is, before I take up any loan, always ask yourself, could I afford it? If I could afford it, if things goes, you know, interest rate goes up, what are the possible options I have? So these are the preparation that we have. And do I really need that loan? How does it value add to me in my, good loans? When I say helpful loans that add value to your life. So that, example, if I buy a house, right, I want to go home every day, enjoy my family, and then have a roof over the head, a place we call our own restful. And I know for a fact that I could afford the installment. But if I buy a house beyond what I could afford on onset, they know I've calculated, I know it's beyond, but I just like the house, and then it could end up every day could be a struggle. Why? Because I want to think about the coming installment, how much I need to pay. Now, again, set aside all these things, right? Let's assume that I already bought a house. Now the interest rate is going up. Why? Because that's well, it may, I'm not sure how it's the outlook. Some say it may come down, some say it might taper, and things like that. But regardless, right, interest rate goes up. If I'm a floating interest, it will then cause me my installment to go up. And when that is the case, it means that it will then more of my take-home pay will then go for the installment payment. It means that other part of my payment, right, or other part of my expenses has to be then readjusted to make sure that I still can balance my book. Now, if I am struggling with an installment, what I need to do, very importantly, is this, right? Take stock of your borrowings. What are the areas that, all the money is going to for the payment, right? If I could, if possible, try to do partial pay down so that I could reduce the interest element or the outstanding loan. Now, easier said than done. It takes me about 15 years, right? I took a loan earlier when I was buying my first home, right? 30 years, during that time, we could take 30 years. But I told myself, after working in the bank for a period of time, I told myself, I think that is something that is, if not handled properly, it could turn out quite ugly. So what I do is this: every time I got extra cash, I save up 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. I'll just accumulate it, and then I pay down. So less than 15 years, I fully paid my loan, right? But was that sacrifice trade-off? Absolutely. But I have an objective and a reason, because I wanted to do that. So I'm prepared for the trade-off. So do that, right? If you could, in your own capacity, think about that. Partial pay down gradually, may not be a full lump sum, partial pay down, and then gradually reduces it. And the third thing to think about is make sure that you stop all borrowing, because if it's going to weigh on you in terms of debt, you don't want to build up. So therefore, you should stop it, such that, like credit card or personal loan, overdraft, all this, stop it so that you will not build up anymore. Why? Because the interest on my current borrowing is already building up. And so it could add on me. So just be very careful with that. Okay. And then, of course, then if let's say if you're really having difficulty, talk to the creditors, talk to the bank, and check whether is there a way, to work things out to help you to tie over that certain period in terms of cash flow. Perhaps it's just a short-term cash flow that you're facing, right? Work something out with them if possible, rather than leaving it and letting it explode. I think things can get very unpleasant when that happens. If really need help, don't keep quiet. Reach out for help. Things like places like Credit Counseling Singapore is a good avenue that you could talk to, to seek some counseling on that. Okay. So next question, what is your advice on spending for today and not worry about tomorrow, as tomorrow we don't know if we are around anymore? Absolutely. I got a privilege to serve a class, right? And it's a sad story. Why? Because this brother grew up as an orphan. They don't have, the parents are no more around, and they are already in the adult age. And they asked me, sir, why do you ask me to save money when I don't know who should I be living for? Because it's just two of us. I said, sir, I addressed them both sirs. I said, well, the fact is this, all right? What if tomorrow comes? I have today, but what if tomorrow comes? Do I have what it takes to meet tomorrow? At least meet the minimum. And until I find a reason and a purpose to have a higher goal in terms of my financial goal, then at least I'm starting in the position where I'm more prepared. My basics are met. I could then elevate to reach even further for that goal with what already I have, right? So never give up, all right? Never give up, stay vigilant, always stay positive. Why? Because our mindset and our way of managing money, we, like what I mentioned, right? Some people say, oh, life is precious, right? Don't waste time. Now, what I hope to do for myself is this: build up the habit such that I won't waste too much time too worried about money. Not that I don't worry, not that I don't plan. I spend sufficient time to put it in play such that I have more time for other meaningful things that I want to pursue. Yes, right. So thank you for the question. Right. Any advice how to avoid impulse saving, cooling period? Right. A lot of things they're set in place. Some of these, like for example, some spa packages where they have this cooling period, or even insurance, they have this cooling period whereby you can within X number of days you can go back and say I changed my mind or I've decided not to. So do that for yourself. Right, walk away and ask yourself many times when I'm so driven to say I want to buy the device, the electronic device, and guess what? Because of inconvenience, I could not reach it, and therefore, after a few days or even weeks, I realized, hey, what am I doing? Why do I really need it? Right. So it helps you to then cool down and be, rather than letting my heart dictate what I spend, I let my mind dictate and ask myself, do I exactly need it? Second is, would I have done more with the money that I have for that device that cost me a few $100s, right? So I hope that answers. Not easy, need a bit of purposeful managing our feeling, right, for that. Heard about FIRE concept in budgeting, all right? What is your opinion on this? Okay, FIRE, what does FIRE means? FIRE, it's financial independence, right? Retire early. Of course, there are different concepts. Subsequently, when it was formulated, somehow it branch into barrister FIRE, and then you have your lean FIRE and others, right? So let's talk about the basic. Yeah. So it's all started in 1992, the year 1992, right? This book called Your Money or Your Life, or Your Life or Your Money, something like that, right? And so it advocates a certain kind of living whereby one save aggressively, so that, and then invest, all right, purposefully meaning what? With the intention to retire when I'm 30s or 40s years old, right? In my 30s or 40s. Now, it seems to suggest, very good. I mean, I could stop working early and then you smell the roses. Why not? The question is this, okay? If I retire 30, from 30 onwards, all the way to, let's assume again, the statistic of living up to 84 years old, all right, a good 40, 50 years more ahead of me. I really need a lot of money to make sure that I have sufficient to last me through that period, right? So that's one. Second, right, 30 to 40 years, right, to really save and save yourself, save up, aggressively. It could also be a challenge. Why? Because in order to build up the amount, we get anxious. And when you get anxious, FIRE itself also suggests investment, right? So during that 10 or 20 years when we're trying to build up our wealth and then trying to save aggressively and trying to also invest actively, sometimes the anxiety or the anxiousness may cause us to make wrong judgment. And when that happens, like what I mentioned earlier, if it sets me back a few years or even worse, wipe out everything and then I'll start from zero. So I think, all right, it's important to always examine yourself. What exactly do you need? What is most suitable for you? The concept itself it's nothing wrong. I mean, it's just an approach, but is it suitable for me? Then I ask myself, what is best for me? Maybe it's a different, maybe I'm not, instead of 30, 40, I put at 50 years old, 60 years old retirement, things like that best suits my situation. Do I have the income to save aggressively? If let's say I'm earning $2,000, how do I then bridge the gap? Unless I have higher income, But if it is higher income, then it takes time sometimes to start working, and it takes time to build up your career, right? Okay, so that part I think it's something it's very subjective, but measure it carefully. What is most suitable for you? How can we budget when so much distraction and hate to turn down friends asking me out? Okay, I think it's important to know what you want, because end of the day, like what I said, it's always good to have friends. Wonderful to have people around that we can meet. And sometimes, I'm out front to tell them, why not we just go kopitiam? I do that. Nothing shy about it. We are friends, right? So let's go. And then many times we thought that they probably prefer restaurant. Ended up they join me to have a cup of coffee at the Heartland Kopitiam, right? So it's fine. So once in a while we pamper ourselves, but the important thing is this: understand the decision and the action that we take the implication in the time to come. Why? Because if I keep spending what I have now, then what am I doing for my future plan, right? For my tomorrow, because tomorrow will come, and tomorrow will be today soon, right? So therefore, do that. And then one more thing is this, right? There's this saying says that we are the average of the 5 people that we meet or we mix with, right? So selecting friends is important and necessary, right? It could help us to be a better person. And I always say, I'm looking for friends that could help. I can help them to be a better person, and I be a person. So let's encourage each other. Perhaps they have the intention to encourage me to manage money better. So why not, have a talk on money matters, and then, hey, how do you budget? How do I budget? And we share it out. Like what Oprah Winfrey once said. Oprah Winfrey is one of the talk shows in US. I'm not sure it's still around, but anyway, she's quite famous. She said this, okay? Many people like to travel with me in my limousine. But what I'm looking for are friends who will travel with me in a bus when my limousine breaks down. Many people would like to travel in my limousine with me. But what I'm looking for are friends who will travel with me in a bus when my limousine breaks down. Yeah. Okay, now I'm a student. Next question, I'm a student. I just given enough allowance. Is it not possible to save 20%? If it's okay if I don't save, right? Okay, habits takes time to grow, to build. Yeah, and I always say this: already start small. That it's open. When you start that habit, right, and gradually appreciate the effect from saving, you see the reason and the purpose of doing so, and gradually you build up. When that it helps to build up the momentum. I may have 1-2%, 5%, 7%. That's okay. I gradually work towards the 20% over time. When next time I work, the habits is formed already. Like what I always share in the class, I always say, if that little money I could handle it, when more is given to me, I'm more prepared. So let's dismiss the misunderstandings to say that, wait till I have more. Can I say this? If I'm more, the struggle is very stronger. So therefore, have the habits set in place, financial habits set in place. Okay, now next question. Can share some of your best and worst financial decisions. Hope to learn from you. Well, this is a question that has always been asked to me. I remember many years ago, this is something that I talk about, is about investment. Let me share the macro view. In the 90s, someone encouraged me to buy shares in the 90s. During Gulf War, the share was like going up. I remember buying this share $7.50 or 70. And true enough, within a few months, or even close to a year or so, it went to about $15, $15 plus. So can you imagine that 15 times? That's a lot of money, all right? And guess what? How do I buy? Because somebody told me. And somebody told me, hey, must buy. Oh, market very hot. And guess what? When I go to the hawker center, when I sat there and I'm queuing up for my, I'm queuing up for my, my fishball noodles. The hawker sir, the gentleman that is cooking, the chef, the person that's cooking the fishball, while the queue is very long, he was looking up while his hand is busy cooking. He's doing this. Then I looked up and I realized he's looking at teletext. He was so engrossed with the teletext, he doesn't mind the queue is queuing up, although his business, his food tastes good. So therefore, that market was very into herd syndrome, whereby everybody is just chasing and saying the market will go up. And guess what? We went through a correction. And from the share that I bought, it was $15, then it started to come down $12, then it up to $7, $5, and I got out at $3 plus. I saw that it's coming, and I said, better get out. Something is going on. And true enough, the market going through correction. There are people who didn't manage to get out. So if you ask me what's my best financial decision, getting out. What's my worst? Trying to get involved in the investment by hearsay. I should have done my homework, and no. Because why? Because when we want to invest, you must know what you're buying. If you ask me that time, what is the counter doing? What's the company doing? I don't know. That's very dangerous. I'm glad I got out, without a scratch. But that shouldn't happen again. Right? Thanks for the question. Right, I have some spare cash. It is a good idea to pay off my HDB loan to reduce accrued CPF interest that I need to refund. Okay, now question is this. If I have a spare cash, then I ask myself, firstly, what is my opportunity cost to that? If that's opportunity cost is something, let's say the loan is paying 2.6%, and I'm holding cash at 1%, and I'm paying the interest at 2.6%. Seriously, I am short changing myself at 1.6. Why? But because interest I need to pay. So therefore, I need to be very careful to measure it and ask myself, what do I do with my money? Is this spare? It's not emergency fund, it's spare cash that I could use to pay down so that I can save. Because why? It becomes an opportunity gain to me by saving the interest expense. Am I right? Okay, so these are the things that I would measure against myself. And then second thing is the CPF interest. If I do a refund to CPF, it's still my money. The interest that is accrued inside that paying back for refund, it's my money. End of the day, it's going to serve me in my retirement or whichever the account is meant for, right? So therefore, understand this. Let's not do that compartmentalizing. There's this thing that I do, when I compartmentalize, I realize, oh, this is a loan, and this is, CPF that I need to pay, and these are my money. They are all still my money. One is I need to pay with my money. One is I keep it for myself for purpose that is designed, where CPF is designed for. So I hope that answers the question. I'm going a bit too fast, is that right? I'm running out of questions. Okay, you guys are always talking about saving more money, but my income is low. Are there better ways to grow my dollars without saving too much? Well, you see, the thing is saving is a habit. It's a habit that takes time and effort to put in place. It is not something like for example, if I'm a kid, right? Somebody give me some sweets and it says that, no, this is for you. And to me, I will finish it. But if they tell me this is a sweet that will hold, that I will have to keep it and enjoy it for the next 1 week, otherwise no more sweets, right? What do? I won't finish it. I will try to split it out so that every day I have a bit. I'll do that. So that every day I come home, I'll have some bit. And so therefore, it's a very logical process to know that, firstly, identify what is the reason and why am I saving. And that gives you the drive and the purpose to deliberately do the saving. Save it not because Joseph tells you, I'm Joseph, so I'm telling, not that because I'm sharing, but because there is an identifiable goal down the road that you're trying to achieve. And when that saving is one step closer, few steps closer to your goal, you'll find the purpose and the drive to do so. So do that, right? Saving. And then, and second thing is this, okay? If possible, like what you said, the income, right? It's always good to upgrade ourselves. And I always share in some of my classes, I said, when I solve a company's problem, and that's why they pay me. So when I'm there, I solve a problem. For example, if they need to clean the office, I'm helping to clean the office, I get paid. But if I could do my cleaning service better, higher service, probably then my service could command a premium. So therefore, to do so, right, it's important that we upgrade ourselves to make sure that we got what it takes, the bare minimum, but even more, so that we can value add. And when that is the case, right, I'm solving problem value add, right? It will help me to also not just on the saving expenses, but also in terms of my income. All right. So always do that. Always remember you are a solution provider. Your solution, providing that solution is important. And in order to value add, right, do that. Yeah. Okay. So I've been notified that due to time, I have to then call it to an end. So let me just see if I could let me just see. Okay, there's one question here. I'm not sure earlier I missed out any, but let's look at this. I'm in debt, struggling to pay by installment. How can the financial ratios help me? Now, financial ratio itself help me to take stock of how am I doing now? How far am I away from the benchmark? Doesn't mean that the benchmark is something. It's just basically checking how am I doing. And then, so can I then look at the numerator and denominator and then work towards trying to achieve the benchmark? And if I think that the ratio that I shared with you, it's a bit high, bring it down. Maybe instead of loan at 30%, right, I bring it out to 25. Instead of saving 20%, I save 30% because that's what I need and this is what I want to do for my goal. By all means, right? So important thing is that it helps you to gauge yourself and plan what are the action that need to be taken. In terms of debt, just now I shared quite a fair bit already. So I will not dwell on that, all right? And then you could then, think through the things that I've shared concerning debt. Stop new debts. Make sure that, do a plastic surgery if it's credit card. Take stock of those the debts, right, or whatever that is, and then try your best to prepay if possible, partially, if totally you can't, partially, bit by bit. How do you build a house? You build a house a brick at a time, right? A brick at a time. So same thing, debts, right? Do that. And talk to your creditors if possible. Try to work them something out. Then there's this thing called debt consolidation plan that some of these financial institutions they offer. If I have a few creditors that I've got to deal with, going through this debt consolidation plan, put them all together and then term it out in terms of cash, in terms of term loan. But it may not be suitable for everybody, but it's one way that you could consolidating your debt if you're facing a few creditors. It doesn't reduce your debt. It just gives you an option to term out your debt. Right? Term out the debt. So that will be the last question for today. I hope I've managed to answer all, if not most of it. Right. I hope that I also it's been a meaningful time of sharing. Do come for our class. So I'm going to show you some of the connection, the staying connected with us. Right. So let me just bring you back to the slides over here. Okay, so now there may be some questions you and me have, or questions that you think that hey, 1 hour a bit too short. I want more in-depth discussion. Feel free to sign up for our financial health clinic. This is a one-to-one session, half an hour free of charge, consultation with a person sitting across the table who is a volunteer. The volunteer is either a licensed financial advisor or a trained, experienced trainer. And this course is totally free, limited to half an hour, limited to first come, first serve basis, as well as there are no selling, no commercial interest tied there, purely for free and unbiased, purely free and unbiased. So sign up that, right? Some we have English, Mandarin, Malay, and also Tamil languages where available. So feel free to do so. Otherwise, right, you can also consider taking up our workshop or talks like this, talks whereby we share more in details in specific topics, right? And also workshop that you can get involved in some activities, engagement, right? Do that. I always say this course that's being offered, right, covers from cradle to grave. Why? Because it talks about what money management for children, and then you go all the way to buying a house, forming a family, right? Insurance, about investment, different products of investment that we will touch on as well, about planning for retirement, planning for even legacy. Can you imagine that? So there's a wide spread of topics that you can choose from, and then, you know, make use of it. It's free and it's unbiased. The good thing is you won't be asked to buy anything, right? So you make your own decision with the concept that you learned, and you think that it's relevant and useful, you know, apply them. Hopefully you benefit from it. And then, you know, I think that's the main purpose that we hope to serve you. Yeah. Okay. So more question. If you have more question, right, visit us, write to us in email, or even visit our Finland SG. There's a communal learning platform, and it's also our e-learning platform for you to use some of this e-resource that we are offering to you free of charge again. Yeah. Otherwise, stay in touch with us, right, through all these social media avenues. And of course, to add on to what I've shared today, right, if you like to, on your own personal space and time, would like to find out more of what I've shared today, feel free to visit all these websites over here, my Money Sense, right, and then anti-scam hotline and scam alert website, which I talked about. And before I go, right, so just to introduce to you, this is just the first of the many installments of Ask Me Anything that we have just started, right? So today we are talking about financial fitness, right? And next month, right, look out for it on the 14th of February, you'll be talking about financial planning for couples, right? So if you and me are planning, if you are planning to settle down and form a family, or you are already already in a family, right, of your own, and then you think about what? About my insurance, my children, how to buy the first home, how do I plan for retirement as a couple, things like that. So we will attempt to answer your questions during the session in February, right? And before I go, right, like to ask for your support and help to give us your feedback, right? So scan this in and help us, let us know, right? If you have enjoyed the session, if you think that's meaningful and helpful, give us your support, right? If you think that, you know, there are areas that you'd like to see more, see less, or things like that, let us know, right? So that we can continue to value add to your financial literacy journey, right? Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a short while before we, you know, close the session for you to scan in this QR code and help us to fill up the feedback. Yeah, thank you everyone. Have a great second half of the day. All right, thank you for coming. Thank you very much.